Hey, welcome. Good morning. Welcome, Newbreak, OB. I'm Carter, pastor here. If I haven't met you yet, glad you're spending part of your Sunday with us. Cool to just see people taking steps of discipleship. We're all about living out our faith practically, so glad you got to see some of that. I don't know if you've seen recently, people have posted these photos in some different spots, some of the amazing new photos from NASA. I don't have them loaded in here, but pretty incredible. If you've never seen them, they're taking the deepest into space we've ever had. The clarity's incredible. It's pretty awe-inspiring to me. It just connects me with our God who created the universe, and just getting to see how beautiful it is. And honestly, I've always loved space. I did think a lot about being an astronaut when I was a kid, and then I realized I get motion sick way too easy, so I'd never make it through the spinny gyroscope thing and the training, so I had to do a job like this instead. But just kidding. I love this, so I did this instead. And but there's a great picture from space I wanted to show you. It's not from the most recent photos, but just a few years ago. Again, incredible clarity. And I don't know what you think. Like when I first see that, I think, well, that looks like somewhere I'd like to go snowboarding in Colorado or something, right? It looks nice. Looks like ice on there, snow. That's actually a picture of Mars. And astronomers say that this is the clearest evidence that we've ever had that there was water on Mars, because you see kind of the streaks where it looks like water was flowing down. And so they believe this is evidence there was once water on Mars. In fact, that's always the main thing astronomers are looking for in other planets, is evidence of water. Why are they so obsessed with looking for evidence of water? Are they just looking for new surf spots or something? No, because it's what astronomers know, and we know, even if you're a non-science person, that where there's water, there's life. You know, where there's water, there's life. And so if there was once water on a planet, means a high probability there was possibly life on that planet. I don't know if it necessarily means aliens and Martians, although if there are any, they're definitely walking around OB, because that's what I've seen on Saturdays walking around here. But at the very least, plants and bacteria, at least lived at one time, is what they think, because where there's water, there's life. That's true on Earth. Where there's water, there's life. I mean, not a day goes by we don't interact with water in our lives. You've already probably used it a bunch this morning, either showering. If you didn't, I'm sorry for who's sitting next to you, or just kidding. But we use it all the time, right? Drinking and cooking, showering and toilets. And if you take your toilet for granted and you have to use a porta potty for a couple of days, and you're thankful to come home to something that flushes. Of course, we live somewhere that we actually get to, swim and surf and do things in the water as well. Some of you are lucky enough to have view of the water. So we get to, just kind of experience water all the time. We never really have to think twice about it. Except sometimes, like if you drive on the freeway now, you'll see the sign saying severe drought in Southern California. So helping us be aware. Hey, be aware, cut back some of the water use, watering lawns and some of that. So, but we never really have to think twice about, am I suddenly just not going to have any access to water? That only happened to me once in my life. It was like senior year of high school. I won't tell you which year, because then you'll spend the rest of the sermon doing the math. So, but it was my senior high school, and I grew up in Iowa, and we had a huge flood. It just flooded all over the place. It was the most massive one I'd seen, and I remember I actually volunteered for a few days in a row, just putting up sandbags. We're just trying to protect places still that hadn't been hit yet. The main place we were trying to protect was the water treatment plant, because if it gets contaminated, then kind of nobody can use their water. And that is what happened. I mean, this flood was massive, was everywhere. By the way, if you're from Iowa, their main marketing slogan comes from the movie Field of Dreams. You can buy T-shirts that all say, "Is this heaven?" No, it's Iowa, right? Because of the movie. So they were selling all these shirts at the time. "Is this heaven?" No, it's a huge lake, is what it said. Actually, it was a different word there, but probably shouldn't say it in church. But anyway, they thought it was funny. So flooded really bad, and the water treatment plant did have to shut down. So all of our water was turned off for like 2 or 3 days. And, there wasn't as much of kind of the bottled and sparkling water everywhere. You could get it in jugs. But yeah, any water we wanted to use for cooking, washing our hands, we couldn't really flush our toilet and couldn't shower and stuff. So, it was just kind of weird, just living in a nice suburb, but all of a sudden having to deal with this for a few days, kind of the closest I've come. Of course, I'm sure you've heard that there are lots of places, though, around our world that really never have access to clean water. And because of that, it just leads to all sorts of issues, so many waterborne illnesses. Diarrhea is a big one, not something that we like to talk about, but it really causes a lot of death because it really leads to a lot of dehydration. So people are sick all the time, which means kids can't go to school, and then the adults can't go to work, and so now your education and any chance to make money is affected. Just incredible. I couldn't believe this stat. It's a hard one for me to believe is true. It's from World Health Organization, though, and they say now 1 in 3 people in the world doesn't have access to clean water. It'd be like a whole third of this room would never get it. So just crazy, and of course all the numbers of kids that die from it and all this kind of stuff. So this is something, by the way, we've been passionate about trying to tackle this issue as a church all the way back to 2006, before I was here. This has been a part of who Newbreak is. So if you've been around for a while, you've heard us talk about it periodically. And if you're new, well, I'm glad you get to hear some about it. But definitely one of the things we're passionate about going after. Why is that? Well, number one reason is just feel called by God in doing that. But secondly, I know there's a lot of different issues in the world, and we need lots of churches and other organizations to tackle all the different ones. It's going to take a lot of people to tackle them all. Some of them can feel kind of discouraging because we just don't have answers yet. We're funding research, trying to figure out, from cancer to Alzheimer's, these things, funding lots of research. Other things, there's some answers, but a lot of debate about best way to deal with it. I've been in a lot of meetings around homelessness and tons of different ideas, but never seems to be the one that everybody's on board with. So a lot of issues just get caught up in even, debating them, trying to figure out how to solve them. But not this one. Not this one. And if you just get overwhelmed by just feeling like the world is always bad news, I just want you to know there's a few areas that there is actual progress. There are some problems that we actually have answers to, like this. Look how simple this little thing is. This little filter brings clean water into homes and can change everything from that. Kids can go to school now. People can go to work. People quit dying, and people get access to clean water. We already have the technology. It's already been invented. Nobody has to do research, and for the most part, governments aren't debating necessarily how all to do it. Just, we know how. So let's just do it. So there are some things that really have some answers. Someone told me after first service, she's about to be a grandma for the first time. And she's like, man, my first thought was, it's not a good time to bring a kid into the world. She said, but I'm glad to know there's some good news, that there is some progress. And so I just want you to know that there are some areas like that. And so that's why we've been passionate to go after this. And it's a lot to say, well, let's just do it in the whole world. The whole world's pretty big. And so we said, well, let's at least tackle one country at a time. I think that's how you change the world. So that's what we've been doing, working our way through the list of countries that struggle with this the most, and where God's opened doors. So if you've been around here, you heard actually back in January, we got to celebrate. We finished our first country completely border to border of clean water. It's in Liberia. You may not have heard Liberia, but it's really number one in all the World Health lists of poorest in the world. So we started there. So now everyone is within 10 minutes of a clean water well everywhere in the country. And when we do it, we bring the gospel as well, and opportunities for house churches and things. So whole country Liberia. We've worked on Fiji for a long time. You're like, but I buy Fiji bottled water. How do they have water issues, right? Yeah, it's terrible. It's a mess. The part of the country that water comes from, no one else in the country gets that water, but the government gets to export it and make a lot of money out of it. It's a mess. But anyway, so the rest of the country doesn't have access to clean water. So we're almost done in all of Fiji. And I don't know, 2 countries, pretty good. My lifetime, you solve it in 2 countries. Pretty proud of that. That's good. But we're not going to stop. We said a few weeks ago, I don't want to just get complacent in that. I want to keep bringing, following God's mission to meet these needs around the world. So today I want to let you know the next country that we're going to tackle, and it's one that I would not expect would be high on the list of needing clean water, but it's also one that we're all familiar with. If you've never been there, you've at least seen it in movies, and you've heard about it. It has one of the 7 wonders of the world in it. It's a biblical country because Jesus spent time there and Moses spent time there. And it's country of Egypt. Egypt, where we're going to go next. By the way, has anyone in here been to Egypt already? How many of you have been? All right. Oh, cool. A few people have already been there. No one in the first service. You're better traveled. So Egypt, old country. It's got the 4,500-year-old pyramids there and the Sphinx and just some pretty cool things to see. We had a few staff that just went. Some of our pastor at Tier Santa campus, Marcus, our lead pastor, Robert. Some of you met him here a few weeks ago. They were all over there on a trip a few months ago, and I'll let you know what they did soon. But yeah, part of what, they got to be there. They got to ride camels for the first time. We said that looks like an album cover. That should be like an album cover on there. But anyway, so yeah, they said, it was great. Just meeting people seemed incredibly warm and welcoming, friendly. They found that most homes, our houses here have, 3 to 5 people in your family living in them or a couple of roommates. Most of their homes have about 20 to 25 people because they live with all their extended family in one place. And some of you, the thought of living with your extended family is giving you high anxiety right now. It's okay. You don't have to do that here. But they do a lot of that. Even some of the, there's a room for the animals, kind of like in the manger story with Jesus. So some of the chickens and animals kind of live in the house as well. And I've never been to Egypt. I picture it pretty much just deserty, pretty brown. And it is. Most of it's desert. One of our pastors says, it just looks brown everywhere because even the buildings are just also sand colored. But what's interesting, if you actually see a photo of Egypt from space, speaking of space, and here's one you see all brown deserts, ocean at the top, or the sea, and all brown desert, and there's that green, right? Green snakes through is green. That's the Nile River, because the only parts of Egypt that are green are all near the Nile. In fact, my friends who went over there told me said they have this saying in Egypt, where there's water, there's life. I thought, oh, yeah, that's the same thing astronomers say. They know where there's water, there's life. So people want to live near the Nile, and they want to be able to even see the Nile. So it's a great water source. Couple things I didn't know about the Nile. Maybe you're smarter at geography than me. One thing is that it flows north. How's that possible? Doesn't gravity pull it all south? Just kidding. That's not how gravity works. But anyway, so it actually flows north. It's flowing from Ethiopia, and it ends up in Egypt. And while it's supposed to be this incredible water source, it's actually one of the most polluted rivers in the world. While Pastor Robert was there, he said, we're watching people, wash off our food, and they're washing their hands while they're cooking our food. He said, and I watch a dead cow floating in the Nile right by. That's where they're getting all their water from. And so the homes there have faucets like you do. Turn on the faucet. It's indoor plumbing, but is putting out some pretty contaminated, pretty nasty water. And so that's their main water source. I would not have known this in Egypt, but that's why it's such an issue. And there's 105 million people that live there. And so that's one we want to partner with God and go after it. We have a God who's all about bringing life. Wherever he goes, and where there's water, there's life. So how do we do that? And we're already, if you're new to Newbreak, you'll find out we're already always about being the church, being the hands and feet of Jesus, trying to live out our faith by meeting people's needs, and we want to do that all over the place. So how do we keep doing it here? Well, I don't know if you're aware, but actually water plays a pretty important part all throughout Scripture, from Old through New Testament. In the first couple verses of the Bible, God is creating water, separating it from the sky. You get into some of the stories we've talked about over this last month with Moses and the Israelites. God parts the Red Sea, so God's parting water. He's providing water in the middle of the desert. You get to the New Testament with Jesus. He's always either walking on water water or turning it into wine, and which is a pretty helpful trick at parties. But so he can do all this stuff. Then you get to Revelation, and it describes part of where we're headed. What's in for our future is actually this beautiful kind of streams, crystal clear streams you read about Revelation. So water's been present all the way through, and I just wanted to show you it's a great story of water from Jesus. And I think it has a lot to say to this and a lot to say to you. Whatever you come in here going through today, whatever you're struggling with today, I hope Jesus' promises that you're going to hear are just super encouraging for you today. Just, well, life-giving. Where there's water, there's life. And so that's what Jesus talks about in this story. It's early on in his life. It's told in the Gospel of John. If you want to follow along, you're always welcome to bring a Bible or use an app on your phone. But we're in John chapter 4, pretty early on ministry. He does have some or all of his disciples are with him already. So they've been walking around with him. Remember, they don't get to just jump into an Uber to go everywhere. They're walking all over. And if you've been to Middle East, I mean, you know the terrain. It's similar to Egypt. It's parts can be rough terrain, very deserty, and that's where they travel all the time, and they travel by foot. And in this story, they're going from, we read in the first couple verses, from Judea to Galilee. That's a 3-day trip. Most of those people took 5 days to do it, because they're walking from Judea to Galilee, and then you hit this area, and they all want to go around it. It's an extra 2 days to travel around this area that's between Judea and Galilee. It's called Samaria. They spend 2 extra days just to travel around it, not to go through it. Why would they do that? I don't know, have you ever had to travel from here to NorCal and you're like, I'm going to take extra time to go around LA because I don't want to go through it. I don't know if you've ever done that. I just drove right into the heart of LA over the last 2 days because I was visiting my brothers up there. I would rather go around it. But usually we go around it for traffic. For them, it wasn't really traffic. But, I mean, why would you take 2 extra days by foot? It's one thing to do it in my air-conditioned car. But by foot in the desert, 2 extra days of travel? Like, how bad can this place be? What's keeping them from just going through Samaria? Well, honestly, the most basic reason is racism. They wanted nothing to do with Samaritans, Jews, and Samaritans. Huge racial divide. Jews considered Samaritans basically half-breeds. They're mixed race. I guess if you're into Harry Potter, think of Muggles, if that helps you understand it. But they're mixed breeds, and they considered them dogs and other kind of racial slurs. So huge amount of tension. By the way, still in 2022, a lot of racial tension still going in Middle East. Even in Egypt, while the pastors are over there, they're saying a lot of places they go, there's these big red signs that say, if you're Jewish, don't come in here. And so big time kind of racial tension here. So the disciples, they're walking with Jesus like, all right, come on, Jesus, let's go around. He's like, oh no, we're going right through it. Maybe they're thinking, oh man, all right, well, if we have to go through it, let's at least roll up the windows. No, let's at least keep our eyes focused and let's just go. Let's just get through it as quickly as we can. Jesus says, no, we're going to go through Samaria and we're going to stop there. I'm sure they're stressed out. They don't know what he's up to as usual, and they're freaked out. But here's how the story goes. We'll pick up in verse 4. It says he had to go through Samaria on the way. Eventually, Jesus came to the Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. We don't have time to read that story, but that's from an Old Testament story that they were all really familiar with. They know Jacob, they know Joseph. Some of you have heard of Joseph in his dream coat, but that's the Jacob and Joseph. So why that's important? Jacob's well was there. This is a famous well. It's been around a long time, and it's right in the middle of the Samaritan village. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from the long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noon time, and it's important to know what time of the day it was. The Bible doesn't always tell us that, but we need to know that in this story. So it's about noon. I love stories, by the way, that remind me of the human side of Jesus. It says he sat wearily behind the well. Why? Because he's tired. He's just hot and sweaty and tired. If you've been hiking in the desert, then you know what it's like. A lot of you hike areas around San Diego. I don't know if you ever go on 3-day hikes in your sandals through the desert, but if you do, then you can relate a little bit to Jesus. I'm guessing he was like really ripped and in great shape. unlike most preachers. So sorry, that was a low blow. But anyway, so Jesus here, he's been traveling. He's just weary. And they don't have coffee shops and they don't have, little kombucha shops. That hasn't been invented yet. So he has to find somewhere to just sit down near a well to get a drink. So he does. It says, soon a Samaritan woman came up to draw water. And Jesus said to her, please give me a drink. He was alone at the time because the disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. It's noontime. They're hungry. Disciples go in to see if, go find a Chick-fil-A in the village. Hopefully it's not Sunday, but then they can hit in and out anyway. So they go to find food. He's all alone, and it's about to get super awkward because here comes a Samaritan. Actually, here comes a Samaritan woman. And we've said before that, sadly, not only severe racism existing back in these days, also severe sexism. So you're pretty low on the totem pole as a woman back then, and then as a Samaritan woman, pretty sad. You can see how awkward it is, because in the next verse, remember, so Jesus actually initiated the conversation with her. People wouldn't do. This is one of those, we don't make eye contact, we just ignore each other. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, you're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink? It's like, why are you reaching out to me for help here? You can hear the shock, right? It's like, you're a man, you're a Jewish man, you're a Jewish rabbi. This is like, picture like a Padres fan suddenly starting a conversation with a Dodgers fan. It would just be so tense and awkward, and it would, okay, well, this is worse anyway. That's coming Friday night, by the way, if you want to go watch some tension between fans. So in verse 10, then, Jesus loved his reply, right? So she's like, why would you do this? And he just got this beautiful, compassionate reply. He says, if only you knew the gift that God has for you. I hope you hear that today. If only you knew the gift God has for you and who you're speaking to, you would actually ask me for water, and I would give you living water. Living water. Now, you got to put yourself in this story. When she hears this, she's like I would be, like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Right? Living water. She's thinking practically. She said, but sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket, and this well is very deep, right? It's like, how's he getting the water out of there? He's diving down in there. He's going to bring some water up in his hands. I mean, how's it? She's thinking practical. This well is deep. Where would you get this living water? Besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons enjoyed? And Jesus isn't like, you idiot, you don't understand what I'm talking about. You're missing the point. Again, a beautiful, compassionate response. Jesus replied, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It will become a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. Part of what we see in this part of the story is how we continue to be the church around our world, locally and globally, is we got to notice needs. I got to get my head out of my busy life long enough to notice other people's needs. Not just see them, but feel them and know it. That's what Jesus did. In fact, we see in the story the two most basic needs that humans have. Water, our physical need, most basic is water, even ahead of food. You can't survive as long. So it's our most basic need is water physically, and our most basic spiritual need, knowing who God is. Physical and spiritual needs are so connected. If you've ever noticed around OB and even just Southern California, lots of people really into yoga, lots of holistic healing. Part of what they're finding, what they're seeking is, I want something that helps me physically and spiritually, both. Because those two are really tied close together. And Jesus knew that. He spent so much of his life meeting physical and spiritual needs together. If you grew up picturing Jesus always just standing on the mountainside or in a temple just delivering sermons, then I'm sorry for who taught it to you, but you miss it. That was like this little piece of his life. All the rest of his life, he's seeing needs, he's meeting them. He's meeting physical needs. He always started with physical needs. And he meets their spiritual needs along with it. God, by the way, knows your basic physical needs. I just want you to hear that. I know right now when it feels really expensive to meet our basic physical needs, he sees them and he knows that. And he wants to help meet your physical needs. And he sees and knows you're spiritual and he wants to meet those too. And he also sees them in people around the world, like in Egypt, their physical and their spiritual needs as well. So I hope if you come in today with some physical needs or spiritual, either or both, that you hear Jesus' words here. He says, if only you knew the gift God has for you. I just hope you hear those words. Let him speak that into your soul today. If only you knew. God's not done with you yet. He still has gifts for you in your health, in your marriage, in your finances, in the areas you feel most need. If only you knew the gift that he still has. Jesus was so committed to spend his life he just wanted people to know the gift that God still has for them. And he calls us to join him in that we're meant to have that kind of compassion. He had an uncommon compassion. I mean, it's easy to feel compassionate on, people that you like, certain images that you see. It's like, oh yeah, I feel bad for them. It's different. An uncommon compassion is on people that you normally would never interact with or even consider enemies. That was the uncommon kind of compassion that Jesus had. He was always breaking down social norms, cultural barriers. He pushed deep through racism, deep through sexism to elevate women like nobody else did. And in this case, he's here to meet her physical need and her spiritual need, clean water and living water, as he says. Give her clean water and living water. And listen, if you think about it, Jesus had a whole bunch of excuses why not to do this. Why not to help her? He has a long list of excuses. She's a woman. She's a Samaritan, by the way. Really bad reputation. Remember I said she came at noon? Why in the desert would you ever go carry heavy pounds of water at noontime? Everyone knows you go do it early in the morning. Those of you, if you ever go golf at Palm Springs or somewhere and you make your tee times like 6 a.m. because nobody's going out at noon or 1. It's just too hot. It's 110 by then. That's how it is in Phoenix and stuff too, and that's how it is here the last 2 weeks apparently. But, all right, you're like, I don't do the hard work in the middle of the day. Nobody does that unless you want to make sure that when you go, no one's going to see you because no one else will be there. Most Bible scholars say she went at noon. She's too ashamed to be seen by anyone. Why would that be? Well, we don't have time to read, but later in the story, she ends up talking to Jesus about how she's already been, by the way, married and divorced 5 times, and she's now living with her 6th guy. And so she's ashamed. She doesn't want anyone to see her. And so Jesus has every reason not to go interact. I mean, talk about pretty far down on the social ladder there. Samaritan woman, terrible reputation. Not to mention, Jesus is really busy, has important things to do, more important people to see. It's hot and uncomfortable. He doesn't know what the disciples are going to think about it. He's keeping people waiting. There's a shorter way to get where he wants to go. All this kind of stuff. But Jesus was intentional to push through every one of those excuses, to push through racism and sexism, and to show his love, to seek out this one woman. I mean, that's just this incredible, just uncommon kind of compassion that he showed, that he was willing to go and do this. The kind of love that Jesus has never finishes finding new ways to express itself, even through us. So he calls us to join him in that. But we have our own list of excuses. We got to have a bunch of excuses too. Some are same as his, some are different. You can see if any of these are what resonate in your head. Maybe you've already thought some today. And I don't share these in shaming ways. I share these to say, well, if we got excuses, let's deal with them. Let's work through them. How about this one? Like when it comes to, let's say, helping people in Egypt. Here's one. Shouldn't we just take care of people in our own backyard? We got enough needs around here in our own backyard. We need to meet those. I agree. We are. We are. I mean, if you come here every week, we share stories of what we're doing. Go look at our pile of backpacks and school supplies. We're going to help a whole bunch of kids with 3 different organizations all in need because of that. We actually have 3 outreaches next week alone, just helping meet needs. So yeah, we are helping our own backyard. We just want to extend beyond that. Maybe you say, well, part of why they don't have clean water because they just have a corrupt government. Anyway, that's why sometimes people don't have access to food and water. You're right. It's true. That's why we're not working through the government for this. We're working through local churches to do this, to deliver. That's how it worked well in Fiji and in Liberia. And so that's how we do that. I know another common one is, when we quote the verse, God helps those who help themselves. I love that one because I love to point out, that ain't in the Bible. Sorry, not a Bible verse. God helps those who help themselves. Sorry, Grandma. You can use it, but it's not really from God and His Word. Actually, the Bible is about God helps those who can't help themselves. Right? That's who He helps, those who can't help themselves. By the way, that's every one of us. Unless you've figured out how to meet all of your needs and you don't ever struggle with loneliness or hope or fear, and you're good on your own. God helps those who can't help themselves. That's what's in the Bible. Here's one. I just have too much on my plate right now. Let me just get my own stuff in order, and then I can start to think about helping other people. I'll be honest, that's my most common. Just keeping it real, it's my most common. I'm thankful I have a wife who calls me out on it. I'm like, listen, it's just busy. I just need to wait for things to calm down. She keeps going, and when is that going to be, right? When is that? When is not the busy season? It's like, you're right. That's true. So that's a dangerous excuse, right? I mean, when do you finally feel like, okay, now I'm good financially. Now I never wish that I had more. I mean, I don't know if that day ever hits for you. I've never felt it yet. Or, okay, things are finally just relaxed and I'm not really busy or dealing with some stressful thing in my life. I don't think that day ever comes, so it's a dangerous excuse. One other one that's pretty common whenever you're dealing with bigger groups of people is, well, other people can do it instead of me. They don't need me. Lots of other people would do that. And I don't know what to say other than it's not true. There are other people. You are the people. We are the people. So that's how we do this. That's why we can pull off so much more together than we can apart. And so if we can learn to work through excuses like these and start to see people the way Jesus sees them, and one common line about Jesus through all four Gospels is Jesus saw people and had compassion on them. He saw them, he had compassion. He noticed it, he let himself feel it. And that's something I've been asking God to just work on my heart, and he has. That he could see when other people see a woman who's working on her 6th marriage, and their first response is, this is going to make some great gossip, right? You won't believe this woman. And he cuts through all that. We'll just do anything to help her understand how God sees her and how he really feels about her. And he's willing to not just help her physical needs. He wants to connect this to spiritual for her, that there's a fresh bubbling spring of life that's going to well up in you. God's always about bringing life. Where there's water, there's life. Where there's living water, there's eternal life. And so Jesus really wants her to see this and to know this. And he's talking about eternity over a cup of water, and she doesn't even totally understand it. They go on, by the way, we just don't have time to read the whole story today, but I encourage you to read it. And they talk about, he basically ends up saying, I can give living water because, I am the Messiah. Talk about Jacob and Joseph and as well. They were waiting for a Messiah. So thousands of years. You're looking at him. I'm he. I've come even to you. And she actually goes on to believe this, which is pretty powerful, and makes me think, I wonder if later she looks back and realizes, it wasn't really the water Jesus came for, that he came for me. He came for me. And you think about her, she had to be thinking, there's no way you can be the Messiah, because why in the world would the Messiah ever come to this village or ever come to me? You have way more important places to be, and you'd be in the temple, or you'd be with religious leaders or with wealthier people. Definitely not in Samaria. Definitely not here talking to some woman on her 6th marriage at the bottom of her totem pole, too ashamed to be seen really in public. There's no way you would come to me. But he did. He sought her out, and he saw her. And this is where I hope you find yourself in this story. Because what's so powerful about these stories is not just that they happened a long time ago in a land far, far away, it's that they still happen. And so if you're still someone who says, yeah, I think I would go at noon because I don't want people to see me. I don't want people to know my past. I don't even want people in here to know what I'm really about. And God definitely doesn't have time for me. He's got to go solve clean water in other places, and he's busy with other things to see me in my piddly life that's just full of mistakes and regrets and 5 or 6 marriages. And I hope you hear Jesus saying, I came for you. I went out of my way, sought you out to sit and have a drink with you, a drink of water with you, because I want you to know you're seen. And I have living water for you. I want to offer you the spring of living water. So whatever you're going through today, I know we'll talk about helping other people. I want you to come to Jesus first. No, he's here to fill you with living water first. In fact, that's what he went on to say a little bit later in Gospel of John. And it says he said it in a loud voice, so it must have been important, wants everyone to hear it. He says, let anyone who's thirsty come to me and drink. I will give you this living water. I don't know if you come in thirsty today, maybe thirsty for just some help, thirsty for some direction. I've been pretty thirsty this week. Definitely thirsty to see more of God. Just all of a sudden, lots of friends going through just super hard things and curveballs that hit them in their life. And man, God, I'm just thirsty. More of you. Just thirsty to see God working in marriages and in people's health, and a lot of friends searching for jobs, and people going through infertility, people going through all sorts of stuff. I'm just thirsty, man. I just want more of God, see more of him work. And I don't know if you're thirsty to see more of that, or you just need some direction in your life, or just some hope, or just some sense of peace in the middle of the anxiety. And we try to seek all this other stuff to help quench our thirst, alcohol or shopping or porn, or, let me just get more degrees, or just kind of keep climbing the ladder, get a little bit bigger house and some of these things. And man, none of that really quenches your thirst. And Jesus says, come to me. My living water is the only thing that can do that. So I hope you find that in him. It's what we try to do here every week, is help you come find some living water with Jesus, the kind of thing that can really last. So I hope you'll find that in him. He says, anyone can come to me who's thirsty and do that. And then he wants us then to share that water with others. We're called to compassion and then commissioned to also go share that with other people. Pretty cool that Jesus likes to have these conversations, by the way, around the local watering hole. And that's what we're always encouraging you to do. You go to the local watering hole. Where's the local place people hang out with you, where you live and work? At the office, the place people gather around, at the beach or parks, at toddler play groups. Like, where's the local spots for you? We encouraged earlier this summer, throw some barbecues, create opportunities to be around people so we can build relationships. We can find ways to bless people. And then God might open doors then for us to get to meet spiritual needs too. That's what we're doing in Egypt, by the way. Not only Nile's so polluted and just causing all these issues and so much death and disease, spiritually, they're up to 90% of people there don't know or believe anything about Jesus. In their religion, I didn't realize this, but they have different names for God. We usually hear Allah, but none of their names for God translate to the name Father. And I know, some of us grew up, you heard our Father who art in heaven your whole life, and you just kind of means nothing to you, but it's realize, wow, like there's people who just have never viewed God as a father. And in this religion, it's very earn your way to God, different steps to go through, pilgrimages to go on. If you can accomplish all of these things well enough in your life, you might have earned your way onto God's good side by the end of life. This idea of incredible grace, unconditional love, God as a father wanting to adopt you into his family, and no, none of that. And so we want the opportunity to share it, not force it, just share as Jesus did. Just let people know about hope and about unconditional love and amazing grace. Because when we do, it changes people's lives. This, if you read to the end of this story with this Samaritan woman, Jesus says, I am he, I am the Messiah. And she actually comes to believe that. And here's what's cool. A lot of Bible scholars say she may have been the very first true Jesus follower, the first person to really understand that he was the Messiah. What about the 12 disciples following him around? Well, they're committed to him. They don't get that he's the Messiah yet. Every time he brings it up, they're super lost and confused. So they don't understand it. I don't even think they understood it all the way till after the resurrection even. So very good chance that she's the very first one to be a true Christian, to really understand Jesus the Messiah. How like God to say, you know who the first person to really get Jesus the Messiah is? It's not going to be a rich, wealthy, religiously educated guy. It's going to be woman, Samaritan, 6 marriages in the middle of a random village. That sounds like God, right? Yeah. The unlikely, the unexpected. That's who he comes for. So if you felt like that, that's who he comes for. And since she believed in this, check out what happens. This is cool. Later at the end of the story, she goes back to the town. By the way, I think about, you mean the town where you didn't want anyone to ever see you. And now she's talking and telling anyone she can find. And they're hanging on every word. And so they believe in Jesus. A bunch of them leave the town and actually, we're going to come see him in person ourselves. She's like, you got to meet this guy. It's amazing. And he knew all this stuff that I did. And the gospel spreads. I guess she's not only the first true Jesus follower, but maybe the first true evangelist then. Because a whole town starts believing because of her. That's what gets to happen when we go to places like Liberia or Fiji or Egypt. My buddy Pastor Marcus here at Santa Campus said, yeah, man, I met some people who they became Christians over there because other people there had told them. So it spreads. You think even in one town, one village over there that we can, bring clean water and living water, and how much could it spread to the whole town? But none of this happens if we don't move from compassion to action. We start with compassion, and I don't know if you've heard the difference between pity and compassion. Pity is just feeling really bad for someone, but compassion always has action in it. And so step one is I got to notice people's needs and feel it, but always has to move to action. That's what Jesus did. He noticed, but then he was always about action. In fact, one of his last teachings near the end of the Gospel of Matthew, he's talking about water again, drinks of water and living water again. And this time he says, hey, remember that time I was hungry and you fed me? I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. And he says a few others. I was in prison and you visited me. I was sick and you came and helped me. Says all that. And just like the woman at the well, like, wait a minute, I don't remember seeing you. Was he hungry one time? I don't remember him hungry. Did you ever bring him a glass of water? I never brought him a glass of water. Right? They're missing it. They're just thinking very literal in the moment. And he says, no. Listen, whenever you did this for one of the least of my brothers and sisters, by the way, nobody is least in the kingdom of God. He's saying who you think is the least of a brother or sister, like a Samaritan woman who's been married 5 times. Whenever you bless someone like this, you're doing it to me. That's a powerful statement. So when you and I bless and help kids, girls through grace, or kids at local elementary school, or people in Egypt, Jesus says, you just did that for me. So it's got to be turned into action. And I think that's the answer to the question that gets asked so often. Maybe you've asked this yourself. Maybe you have a lot of unchurched friends. This is the most common question I hear from a lot of people I know that don't go to church or don't want anything to do with God. Most I have met didn't arrive at that conclusion because they've done a lot of religious and philosophical research. Most just boil down to one question. If there really is a God, how can he see all this suffering and do nothing about it? Don't you see all the suffering, God? And I wonder if one of God's answers is, I was about to ask you the same thing. Are you going to do something about it? Yeah, that's just what I was going to ask you. Why won't you do something about it? I think his answer would be, I did. I actually have a brilliant plan to meet needs, a beautiful plan. I sent you. There's enough of you to do it. even already gave the technology in this case and other issues, other things. It's like, yeah, I know. I have a plan. Like, when are we going to do this? Because we get to be the answers to prayers. And think about this. When we partner with God to meet these needs, people stop asking that question. If we can meet enough of these needs around OB, people aren't going to ask anymore. Where's God? How can he see the suffering? And it was met, even by people in Jesus' name. People stop asking that. Even in other countries where they don't even know Jesus. We become the answers to that prayer, the answers to Jesus' prayer when he says, God, your kingdom come, because in God's kingdom, by the way, nobody's hungry and thirsty and nobody's outcast. So your kingdom come, your kingdom values and lifestyle come here, and your will be done here on earth just like it is in heaven. So we like to pray around here and talk about, please God, let your kingdom come here in OB as it is in heaven, here in San Diego as it is in heaven, here on earth as it is in heaven. Maybe one day here on Mars as it is in heaven. I don't know. But, right? So we get to do that. By the way, you guys get this. I'm proud of you. I'm thankful for you. Thankful to be at this church because we talk about be the church with stuff. We literally do give hungry people food and thirsty people drinks every Wednesday night, every Saturday morning, and a bunch of other ways. And we give people lots of other things, people at the psych hospital who nobody ever sees, the people, kids just down the street at an elementary school. I mean, you guys get this, and we try to share those stories all the time. By the way, sometimes it's kind of cool to come up with like the numbers too. I know the stories are more important, but kind of fun to hear that. So I finally got my act together to try to track how many hours we're spending in a year trying to be the church outside of the church. So got my geeky Excel spreadsheet now, and I try to put all this stuff in there. So far by mid-August, I've tracked just with us here, we're at 1,100 hours, which is like 40 days worth of serving and blessing other people. So good job. Air high five to you. Great job. Way to go. All right. Thank you. Yes, that's good. Right? I mean, really, we're being the church in lots of these ways, and we're going to continue to go after clean water, go after helping people rescue from trafficking. It's just two things we're always going to be about because we're passionate about it. We just took on earlier this year, we want to help families that have kids with special needs. Realize just incredible stats how they can't even come to church because there aren't any churches hardly at all in San Diego even that are equipped to handle that. So we're working on that. You gave generously to it. And actually this coming Saturday, we're building a playground in our parking lot that it's going to be able to be used for that. So come to church next Sunday and you can go see what you helped build. So great job. And if you're new here, cool, because I want you to know this is what we're about, is being the church in all these ways. So we can keep being the church, and here's a way we already have the technology, and it's not very expensive technology, by the way. And so we can do this. And you think about, well, I don't have to do the research. I don't have to find the technology. We don't have to get permission anywhere from any governments. I don't have to pray about whether it's God's will, so that's pretty clear. Really, the only thing left is, well, is it our will? Will I will it to happen? Jesus said we can, by the way. The next sentence after he says, anyone here who's thirsty, come to me for a drink. He says in the next sentence, he says, then when you come to me, if you believe in me, now rivers of living water are going to flow out from you. From you. My water will flow into you, and then we don't hoard it. We let it stream out and flow out from us to other people. And so that's what he calls us to, and that's what we get to do. Now, I know at a time like this, I'm just going to be just super, super honest here, just in this moment, just in case anyone else is thinking the same thing, is like, sounds great, love to help. This just is not a good time. Not right now. Not just, things are expensive if you haven't noticed. Inflation's at 9.1%. I do our grocery shopping now, and it's more expensive than ever, and the gas pump is always a huge bummer. So honestly, it feels like a lot of those obstacles. But part of what God's reminded me, and so I hope it's helpful to you, is I think about no matter how expensive groceries and stuff are, and now I don't get as much of the certain kinds of food as I used to like, I never think twice about water, though. I still never think twice about clean water. Not only coming out of my tap, by the way. Nowadays, we can get bottled water, boxed water, flavored water, sparkling water, right? I mean, we got water coming out our ears. We got all different more kinds of water than anyone's ever had. I have ice cold water that never gets warm thanks to my hydro flask. My dog has clean cold water all the time. And I just think, yeah, God, I got to do something. I mean, things might feel a little tight, but I got plenty of water. And the second piece of that is, so I'm just going to keep everybody waiting. Just let me catch up. Let me get my own stuff together. No, there's people that need this kind of clean water. Think about that even as a church. I mean, we've shared it's a tighter season for us. Our utility bill went up like yours did and all that. And so I thought, I don't know, maybe we should wait and kind of catch up. It's like, no, you know what? It scares me, and it's an awesome step of faith to say, God, we're going to keep prioritizing the marginalized and those who aren't seen, those who are hurting, and trust that you will now provide for that, then in turn you'll take care of us. That's God's promise all throughout his word. Jesus said, when you seek first his kingdom, everything else is taken care of and added for you. God said in book of Proverbs, our wisdom for living, he says, when you decide to bless other people, you will get abundantly blessed. When you help other people, you will get helped. When you want to refresh other people, it's cool when you're talking about water, you will get refreshed. So maybe you came in here today thinking, I came because I need some help in my life. I need some of God's blessings in my life. I want to feel refreshed in my life. And I think God would say, yeah. Me too, I'm going to help you with that. And the answer isn't what you expected. It's different than you thought. It's actually focusing on helping others, and I promise I'm going to refresh and help and bless you through that too. So that's what we're going to try to do over this weekend. And we're doing it at all of our Newbreak locations, really try to help meet this need in Egypt. Here's what's cool, by the way, we're not alone in it. Whew, okay, pressure off. I don't have to do this alone. We're actually part of a network, kind of loosely based network, 500 other churches, Assemblies of God churches just in Southern California. We said, let's all go after Egypt together. So, I mean, we're going to be able to see this thing happen pretty quickly, not just like in our lifetime, like within a few years, we can do this. So it starts with just where we're at. Like we said, already got the technology. By the way, not very expensive for this. That's also really cool. Just $35. I mean, there's a bucket and some other things that come with this. And you can put it in a home. And by the way, remember, a home helps like 20 people, 20, 25. So if you're helping 10 homes, that's 200 people. So just wanted to show you how it breaks down, just for you to really just pray about. Just think about, pray about, what is God speaking to you, even as you sit here. Because I think we have people here who can help 1,000 families. People can help 100. People can help 10. Just kind of wherever you're at right now in your life. What does it look like to, take that step of faith and do this? They when they're over in Egypt, our pastors got to help install some of these in some of the homes, and they teach them how to use it. And by the way, it lasts for 10 years. So every home that gets it helps 20 to 25 people for 10 years, and then we can bring them more. And yeah, they were able to put it into, how many homes? I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, they put it into these 400 homes while they were there, and the rates of diarrhea and all the other disease, 3 weeks later, totally gone. Just 3 weeks, just from doing that. So that's what it's about. That's what it helps us do. And so I just want you to think about it, pray about it. I want you to know that we're all in this together. I already gave. I logged online this weekend. My wife and I decided how many families to give to. So we did. Asked our staff team to do it, all of our Newbreak staff ones. By the way, I'm very thankful. Our lead pastor, Robert, he always, he's super generous. He gives a lot to these Kingdom Builders ones, and I just really appreciate a leader that's willing to model that and go first in that. It kind of challenges me to do that, and I want to do that for you, and so that's why we wanted to go first as a staff, so we never ask you to do things that we're not doing ourselves, life groups and giving and all this, and because we want to be a part of it. We want to be able to do it and to know that we're not alone in it. So it just helps us be able to help people like this with the water that looks like this. So as we're going to receive our offering here during the final song. It's a little different these days because people would be like, let me get out the checkbook. And I don't know if anybody has that anymore. And some of you are like, what is that? So I know a lot of it's online now. And if you do it online, you can do it at home. However, I also give you permission to take out your phone in church and do it right here in church on your phone. You can just pick Clean Water Egypt, and they are, it already tracks that you're from OB and stuff. So, and it just looks like that on there. And just, man, I just want, because we're going to share stories and hopefully some videos of like, look what God did through this, how the gospel spread because of this. They have 2,800 house church leaders ready to go, already trained and ready. They're just waiting to be able to bring these so they can go start it. And so we're going to be able to plant 3,000 house churches along with doing this. And I just want, every time we celebrate it, you to be able to say, I did something. I was a part of that. So whatever level you're at, I just want you to get to be in on some of that too. Remember what Jesus said, whenever you do this for anyone, any of the least of these, you're doing it for me. And we really are. And I think there's going to be some big time celebrating going on in heaven because of what we get to all do together. So let's pray. Let's pray over that. Lord Jesus, thank you for modeling for us in your life how to push through excuses. You even overcame cultural barriers and racial barriers, sexism barriers, Jesus, and you just saw out those who just thought you'd never see them. That's what we wonder so much nowadays. Does anyone even see me? And I pray that we all know because of stories like these that you do. You do see us. You do hear us. You do see our needs. I pray for any of us, God, that's just thirsty today for more of you. Please fill us with your living water. Give us living water that heals us physically in whatever we're facing. Living water that heals our marriage, that leads us in job searches and home searches, anything we're anxious about. Living water that can solve the biggest challenges in our lives. And living water today, God, that brings us hope. Fill us with hope that you will go out of your way to sit down, have a drink with us, and remind us, I've got a gift for you. I pray we can all know that. Fill us up with your living water and then let it flow out of us. Jesus, stream it through us. We're going to keep helping people right around us here in our own backyard. Let it stream through us even halfway around the world, place many of us may never go see, people we may never meet till we get to heaven, and that's going to be fun. Know we're part of their story. So I pray for any of us, wherever we're at, lead us to the generosity, sacrifice, faith of what that looks like. God, please provide through all of us together, all of Newbreak grouping together, other churches working together. Jesus, we pray you would do this. God, it's a stressful area right now, God, finances. I pray right now you just relieve the pressure and stress that any of us are feeling. And I pray you help us take just a step of faith, even when it's hard, because we give you room to write some really cool stories through us. So bless us. Bless our offerings, God, if we give it online later. Remind us so we don't forget. Bless our offering in this moment, Jesus. Do it through us. We give back to you. We worship